So, welcome back. I see Boniface is saying that tune must change, a song about citizens, not themselves, as usual. He's responding to earlier conversation about the protest and the lessons from there. The president should now ride on the correct software by ensuring he does the right thing. He shouldn't wait for the Gen Zs to agitate for the full constitution of IEBC, among other important government agencies. That is Godi Baraza writing to us on X. And Mheshimiwa Ocheng, you are making a point, and I just wanted us to conclude on that question of IEBC, because now, knowing that we're out of time, the review of boundaries should happen between 8 and 12 years. The last one was gazetted March 2012, so 12 years was expiring March 2024. We don't have commissioners to conclude that process. Even if they come on board and start doing it, I mean, on what foundation? How do you resolve some of these?
I think that's why they have gone to the Supreme Court for the administrative opinion, because, and I believe, some is that it was almost a part, what would I call it? A way of going around this. That some people don't want the IEBC to review the boundaries. Yes, yet I believe that we must review those boundaries.
Who would those people be, and what is the motivation?
The people who have ensured that we don't. You know, you said it rightly, in my opinion, Sam, that IEBC has had rings run around it for so long. Everyone wants to have a say on what IEBC does. And then, annoyingly, when the commission has come in, they still continue that thing, start looking at their backs and who is saying what to us, you know? And so I believe that the Supreme Court should provide guidance on how this is going to be done, because we cannot afford to postpone this further. Some of the constituencies in this country that have 250 people, 150,000 voters, and there are those who have 12,000 voters. There are wards that have 28,000 voters. Others have 4,000 voters. So I believe that the review of the boundaries is going to be mandatory before the next elections. And so I hope the Supreme Court is able to give guidance.
Do you think we have enough time to review the boundaries? Of course, conduct the by-elections that have to be conducted. But then again, register voters afresh, because that has to happen for every electoral area, and be ready for 2027 election.
Yes.
Yet the boundaries issue has to be completed by August 2026.
Sam, we have a complete 3 years to elections. 3.
But I have less than...
No,
just
Sam.
About 2 years.
You'll be giving an excuse to the commission.
No, I'm just saying.
Because...
Sorry, Mheshimiwa, I'm just stating facts so that you can discuss. You have to conclude, you have to have gazetted the boundaries for them to be implemented in the 2027 election by August 2026.
Correct.
You have not recruited the commissioners. Yes. The selection panel will need about 90 days once they come on board. And they're not coming on board today. It's just the law that is being signed.
The Legal Commission, Sam, didn't take 3 years for its work. And that Legal Commission set up very, very broad principles and parameters upon which you're going to, delimit boundaries. And we are not overhauling the boundaries. We're only reviewing areas where there's need for review and the presentation on how to review. We are not reinventing the wheel in as far as the delimitation of boundaries are concerned. So what I would imagine is that when the new commission comes in, it puts its house in order and ensures that this can be done within 12 months, 13 months, and we are ready, because 2026 August is another 24 months from today. I believe, Sam, that we should not try to even imagine that this commission will come in and then start giving you that, oh, there's not so much time. Let me tell you something that I believe we must deal with. Anything around elections, we should try our best to deal with it.
Okay.
Remember campaign financing? We pussyfooted, did our ways around until last minute, and we're now saying, oh, you cannot implement a campaign financing. What do you need to do for campaign financing? Just put regulations and implement. Okay. So I believe that, and I want to request those who will get a chance to be in the panel, to put their foot down, do this job within 90 days. Okay. And then those who are going to come in as commissioners, please honor us by implementing the Constitution. Don't try to look at other people to give you. The IEBC as a commission is an independent commission. When it comes in, I wish and hope that they come in and set the ball rolling without trying to be influenced by politicians.
Okay. Daisy, before the Chebukati team left, they had done much of the groundwork of preparing for the next phase, and the next phase was supposed to be public participation. It costs money to do that. I look at some of the proposed cuts by the National Treasury in a letter written to the Clerk of the National Assembly sometime towards the end of last month, and they were proposing to cut the budget for IEBC by 185 million shillings. If you look at the estimates, they do not necessarily allocate resources for public participation or boundaries delimitation. These are resources that IEBC requested for in 2020. They have not been made available. So here we are, we have time constraints, but we still have to finance the commission, constitute it, and do all the other things that need to be done ahead of that deadline of August 2026. Is it possible?
Of course it is possible. As Mheshimiwa was speaking, the phrase that was coming to my mind was panapo nia pananjia. Where there is a will, there is a way. We need to finance those things that are important to us. We know that the political pillar is central to the stability of this country, because every time that we have faced crisis, particularly civil strife, it has been related directly to the political pillar. And so that's not something that we should trifle with. So you can't talk about, even in terms of prioritization of where budget cuts are going to be made, they must not be made in areas that would cause instability in the nation. So those are priority areas that must be made. And as you've said, there is sufficient time. We must not entertain any notion of not being able to do what needs to be done, because as you've said, remember that the commission is also made up of staff. The commissioners are really coming in to give it life, you know, and we have all the experts, the expertise, and the work has already been done. So it's really just to hit the ground running. The Treasury must be nimble enough to be able to release the necessary finances, and Parliament must not hamstring the Commission, because actually it is Parliament that hamstrings it, failing to pass, the budgets in time, failing to release, to allow them the necessary freedom that they need. So I do think that it is possible, it can be done, it must be done. Otherwise, we will be facing another crisis. Why are we going to kick the can down the road for another set of crises? Prioritization of where the cuts ought to be made cannot include that which will destabilize the nation. Okay. It's really as simple as that.
Okay. Arnold, your final take on that as we transition on the next steps that we must be careful to get right.
Personally, I think this issue about IEBC has got so many hats and no cattle. For the simple reason that what we are doing is a lot of window dressing, and that does not address the core issue here. And the core issue, like Mheshimiwa said, is the trust deficiency. We are going about these issues when we have got a trust deficit in the way we do issues. If you look at the new structure, or rather the new proposed IEBC, almost looks like an audit firm. As in, we know everything else. We know how to count money. We can do everything. But when it comes to counting votes, that's where we have got a problem. So I think there's need to have a little bit of a national conversation. I am not worried about timelines, because now we have got an oversight, a superior oversight over people now who know exactly what to do. It appears that the political class works best under supervision, especially from the Gen Zs. So if anyone tries to do filibustering, then he will actually have some oversight actually coming over them, because sometimes the political class has actually been working alone, where if you decide that things will not move, you only need to threaten that I'll bring people to the street. Now you'll actually find people in the street wanting an outcome as opposed to political deal cutting. So from where we are going, I think that it's important for us also, and specifically the political class, to look at the national soul with a little bit of care. Because how have we survived for the last about 20 months without an IEBC, when we know that there could be even an act of God in other areas? It's really careless. I do not know how we actually have had a country moving on. And the truth is that we should never live with hope, because hope has never been a strategy. So when we actually just say that we hope things will be okay, tomorrow we'll be there. There are days where when morning comes, there are people who are not there. So it's important that going forward, we have got a way of ensuring that this is sustainable. I don't think there is so much this bill has actually addressed. For me, The real issue is the trust deficit, and that cannot be healed by rebranding. We do that a lot with our political parties, that when we go to elections, you change, for example, I'm putting on a yellow tie. If tomorrow my party changes, then I'll actually be buying another set of ties. And we try to do that again with IEBC a lot of times. You see, we keep on going around, and the problems and everything, or rather the problems and challenges are the same. When I was working in Somalia, one person asked me one day, Sam, a very funny question, and he told me, you've been here doing advisory to the government on this. Have you realized that for the last 15 years, Al-Shabaab has had only one strategy? They attack at dawn in waves. It has never changed. And we have been training and coming up with newer people, bringing in people, but they use the same strategy all the time, but we have never worked around it. Have you realized that for every time we fought around IEBC, the challenges are the same? We've gone round and we never get to a solution about it. Probably it's just our bad manners. And changing the law will not heal the mischief that is our bad manners.
But let me say something.
So what is the cure to the bad manners?
The cure here is, I think, societal. And for me, one of those things I'm actually happy with what has been happening here is that what you have seen in the last few weeks, those are the opening shots for the third and final liberation. That is the economic freedom for all of us as a people. And it will not be done the old way people have actually been doing politics around here. When we were fighting for the second liberation, there's a way they did it. The first liberation was working around the Mzungu and everything else. Now, for Article 43, and that speaks even to how we actually govern ourselves, is going to be about output. And that will not be just about who you are. We are now going to have a different way of governing ourselves, because then now, what is the miracle that has happened in the few days to actually see so many things happening? You've seen parliamentarians for the first time actually saying no to salaries. In the days of old, you'll never hear that. You've seen now a lot of things. People all of a sudden now having senses. So
before their voices back.
All of a sudden, these people had brain. You see some other people who were acting like clowns in parliament. When things got so hot, you realize they have got brains and they actually think that we are a circus as a nation. Yeah. So I think as we move forward, there is an oversight. And we, the people, is actually going to heal all the problems we have. I think the future of this country is not in the wombs of our women, is actually in the minds of our young people. And that is actually the solution to all the problems we have.
Liz, you wanted to close on this.
I wanted to say something about that trust deficit and to remind us that one of the people that ensure that trust deficit is our political class. Our political class, part of their strategy, you know, you talked about the Al-Shabaab strategy of attacking at dawn. What is the strategy that the politicians use to create that trust deficit in our electoral management body? It is when they begin to cast aspersions on the management of our electoral process and make allegations about the electoral management body favoring one side over another. And I think that that is also part of the problem that brought us to where we are today, because while the law provided for how the commissioners, once a vacancy arises, in the commission and how the selection panel is to be constituted, it is a section of the political class that already cast aspersions on that selection panel, accusing it of being an instrument for one side of the political class. And that is also part of the problem. So we need to also see, that, you know, if you recall in the run-up to the 2017 general election, the electoral management body, IEBC, did so much to ensure, to build trust among Kenyans about the integrity of their processes. You remember the late Msando went on TV, talked about how the system how the system will work, the kind of security that had been put in place to forestall any kind of mischief. So I think that we also need to give the benefit of the doubt to our electoral management body, because it is the politicians that actually create that aura of a lack of integrity and a lack of trust when they feel maybe the process may be slipping away from them, you know? And I think that we need a mind shift, you know, in the way it's not just about the youth. I think it's for every voter. We need to see our politicians for who they are, because they're the ones who have been manipulating the citizenry and voters casting aspersions on processes and the electoral management process and bringing that bad blood. So those are the things that we need also a rebirth among our political class, you know, in terms of being able to allow institutions to do their work.
Okay.
And Sam, just before you close on the same, sorry, this is very important.
10 seconds.
You realize that set of the way of the psyche of how we deal with IEBC has actually turned IEBC into a career graveyard.
Yeah, that, by the way, where careers
that IEBC, it's impossible now to attract talent to IEBC. Because for them that go there, a lot of them, you have no continuity, because you're going to actually, you get a very brilliant young man like Chiloba. The people who worked in the NGO sector, especially the international NGOs, will tell you that a brilliant young man ends up there, and you know who he is. Today, if he walked in the streets, he might not really get, he will get a little bit of greetings. And that has been the way we go about it. So we really need to give confidence to the people, and it's about changing the national psyche. Otherwise, we are not going to attract talent to IEBC, because who really wants to go and work for the next 3 years, be removed unceremoniously, and then disappear into obscurity?
And that must be started, Sam, that process of building trust must be started by the persons we name to the panel. If parties, the way we've set up the new law, if, for example, ISPAC or Law Society or the PPLC and the PS is going to name people who have questionable character or who are openly partisan, then we start on our wrong footing. So we must start building that confidence from the way we appoint this panel and the way we allow this panel to work.
All right. You may want to add that a significant number of former commissioners do not live in Kenya today. They have to go look for protection.
But it's also because some of these commissioners come in and they think they're going there to do the biddings on some people. We let less commissioners be commissioners of the IEBC, not of the political parties, not of the religious bodies are going to appoint them. Let commissioners work for this country when they are appointed.
Independence of institutions, which is one of the issues that the demonstrations that have been happening recently have been about, feeling like the executive is capturing Parliament. So I think it's a moment for freedom of institutions to be independent, to execute their mandate. Now we're transitioning to